Good morning. Thank you for your patience as we get a few of these last minute details straight with Zoom and propping our doors open just a little bit. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at ESA. I am Emily Cranwell, and today I am joined by Reverend Rebekah Savage, who is with us this weekend. Also able to enjoy the hospitality at Rev Sue's house with her five children. But she's joining us this morning from her settled minister position at the congregation of Rockville. So thank you for joining us this morning. Rebekah's going to come forward now and do the opening words and read us our chalice lighting. Oh, but wait, I'm way ahead. We're going to start with our opening hymn, Spirit of Life. Please stand as you're able for hymn number 123. Keep things in their proper order, I will ask Jane to come forward and read our board announcements.
Morning. We have one board announcement today. Please save the date for an all-fellowship picnic at the Doughty's house on Sunday afternoon, August 21st, and more details will follow. So keep an eye on your UU Life. And if you can ask, and Dick will be writing more details. Thank you. Save the date, August 21st.
Now, now we are ready to welcome Reverend Dr. Rebekah Savage for our opening words and challenge lighting. Good morning, wonderful people. Thank you so much for having me today. Our chalice words. We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the grand and beautiful and bold worlds that we seek. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. As Emily mentioned in a beautiful introduction, I'm the Reverend Dr. Rebekah Savage. I'm a settled and called minister at the UU congregation of Rockville, Maryland, on the unceded land of the ancestral home of the Piscataway and Conoy people. I also bring greetings from my congregation and faith here and abroad. Our opening words come from Katie Kandarian Morris, hoping, trusting for so many things. Here we have come into this sacred space, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things. For connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing and wholeness, words and music, for celebration and consolation. Here we have come into this sacred space, bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing. Let us be willing, however we are, forever changed. With these opening words, I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, Be Thou Thy Vision, number 20 in the gray hymnal. If you're joining us online, please do sing along. And if you would please remain standing and join with me in the reading of the covenant of our fellowship. At the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton, we seek to nurture spiritual and intellectual growth for all ages and to be actively involved in community outreach and service, cherishing diversity and celebrating our oneness with all humanity. We covenant to support each other in the spirit of compassion, respect, and love. Let's see if I can see everyone.
can see you.
With that beautiful covenant, I selected a meditation from my dear friend and colleague, the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, which Sean has entitled, I Will Love You Into Being, but I'd like to share it as We Will Love You Into Being. I invite you to arrive fully in this time of meditation. Breathe deeply, perhaps unfurl those shoulders. But y'all are pretty relaxed here, so maybe that's just me. We will love you into being. We will love you by being brave. We will walk directly into the eye of every storm, push back against the wind that tries to stop our forward motion, and bear the bruises from hailstones that mark our skin. We will love you by being strong. We will lift the weight of 1,000 broken hearts, pull the whole world behind us on a single chain, and break our own shell to grow tender and new. We will love you by being wise. We will close our mouths, open our eyes, our ears, our hearts, push aside the obvious, the easy, the darling, and the dead, and begin again to know and not know everything of love. We will love you by being weak. We will reveal the tender and the vulnerable, hold ourselves open, pull off the armor, the exoskeleton, layer by layer, and build nothing in its place. We will love you by being. We will breathe in and breathe out and cherish the beating of our own hearts. Push back against anything that would suffocate our flame. Burn away despair, leave room for more love, leave room for more love, leave room for more love. We will love you by being weak. We will love you by being wise. We will love you by being strong. We will love you by being brave. We will love you by being. Ashe, Amen, and may it be so. At this quiet time and in this place of worship, we would seek to know more deeply what it means to love one another. One way that we show our love in this community is by sharing our greatest joys and our deepest sorrows. We invite you now to come forward or to type into the chat that which you would like to share. If you do choose to come forward, please step up to this mic and introduce yourself before letting us know what it is that's on your heart. I will light the first candle for the joys and sorrows that are not shared in this room and around the world. And then I will light one final candle, unless there's anything in the chat. Perfect. I will light one final candle then for those joys and sorrows that remain in the sanctuary of our hearts. Our fellowship relies on the generosity of all in our community. The morning offering will now be collected and gratefully received.
We are one, we are many in a welcoming place. In the deeds we accomplish, we find our grace. In one world connected by nature so vast, we now plant these blessings that they ever last. We now plant these blessings, may they ever last. We are one, we are many, may peace be our guide as we offer each other with love by our side. With the dreams of the children and the fruits of the past, we now plant these blessings, may they ever last. We now plant these blessings, may they ever last.
And now words from Olympia Brown. Stand by this faith. Stand by this faith. Work for it and sacrifice for it. There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith which has placed before us the loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for the noble duty, and made the world beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message. That you are strong enough to work for a great, true principle without counting the cost. Go on finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves. Good morning again. It's one of my favorite readings by Olympia Brown. Let me first introduce myself again to say I am a geek. I'm going to wear it proudly. I love school, and if I was eternally wealthy, I would spend the rest of my life collecting, stockpiling certificates and degrees like a kid in a candy store. But when I was a child, the biggest unexpected joy was getting out of school early or arriving late, right? You know what I mean. Being picked up early for a doctor's appointment or some other big important event was a big deal. So when the Washington football team won the Super Bowl in 1987, I'm gonna date myself a little bit here. When the Washington football team won the Super Bowl in 1987, my family decided we were gonna go downtown to watch the parade together and gas missed school for it. I was 12 years old, and that was a big, huge, exciting thing to do in the middle of the day. I had my trusty little Kodak camera. Remember those that click like this and go click, click, click. And every one is precious because you only had one roll of film that you could print out pictures for. Remember cameras with film? So we went downtown to enjoy the parade with thousands of other people from the DC area. Remember parades? Does anyone remember parades? Oh. The waves and throngs of people all pressed up against each other, vying for the very best spot along that parade route. Parades to me as a child were like the Russian dolls of unexpected delights. What's coming next? What's coming next? And I was so swept up in the excitement of the day and probably feeling a little more bold than I should have at the age of 12. I asked my parents if I could go up along the parade route for a better view. So off I went, bundled in my little purple puffy coat, dodging in and out of the cheering fans. And it was so great to be a part of something that was so joyful and big and exuberant. Watching the football players grinning from ear to ear, the marching bands, the cheerleaders. I was swept up in that moment until I realized, with some level of panic, I had no idea where I was. Even worse, I had no idea where my parents were. So my little 12-year-old brain is freaking out as I search through the crowds, trying to look for some glimmer of familiarity. But then the crowd started to disperse at the end of the parade. You remember how that last bit of the parade and then just people started just to evaporate at the end? I was panicking. The sheer panic of feeling lost, swallowed up by so many strangers, searching and searching for that safety of being known, for that relief of them swooping me up, 1,000% certain that they were going to be furious with me for wandering too far off. But then I distinctly remember thinking that I should just stop. Just stop. Stop and wait, and they would find me. I have no idea what old Girl Scout training, is that a Girl Scout thing? Probably. Girl Scout teaching crept into my thoughts, or some safety message from school. Whatever nudged me that day, I just stopped. And I sat down on the curb along the parade route and waited for my parents to find me, and somehow they did. I don't remember if they were furious or angry. I just remember that feeling of relief. I'm thinking back on that day, I realize it's one of my earliest experiences and memories of faith. I believed that they would find me. I believed that they loved me enough to find me. I trusted that. I trusted them. And for me, this was one entrance into faith at its most basic. And for many of us, our earliest experience of faith. Faith is a trust or a confidence in something, someone, something grander or bigger, some supreme being. The goodness of life even, the kindness of stranger, perhaps a spouse or loved ones. It's a faith in our parents or caregivers, or I should say some parents and some caregivers, to find us again and again when we've wandered off that path. Have you ever felt lost? Oh yeah, come on then. And then life comes in and it grows. The messiness of people. Can people be messy? Aha. The hard choices and hard lives of people, that doubt and pain and the frustrations and resentments that come in as we grow older and life, does it get easier? Oh no, it gets more complex. And we begin to know a world much bigger than ourselves, much bigger than our small perspective and experience of life. We know war and poverty and famine. We learn of the legacy of slavery and genocide on this country's history. We see the images from the Holocaust and we feel more deeply the pains of life, and know all too well what people at their worst are truly capable of. And people we love, they die. People we love, they break our hearts, they leave us or we leave them, and at times we are cast adrift. And then many of us wrestle with what is faith? What it is to be a person of faith. What is faith just outside of that innate confidence or trust? So I've been playing with this loose definition of faith recently. And for me, faith is the decision to believe in something greater than ourselves. The decision to believe in something greater than ourselves. So it's in that 3 parts, and I'll break it down. The decision is an intentional choice. We are thoughtful beings, or at least we try to be, yes? We can dream, we can scheme, we can play with the best of them. Thoughts are like clouds wandering this way and that. But when we decide, when you make a decision, we commit. We are intentional about a certain mindset. Have you ever made a hard choice? Made a decision to be in a certain way of being? It's a choice. We decide, like I did on that day on that parade route when I decided to sit down. We decide to point our lives towards meaning and purpose. And making a choice is actually a part of our legacy as Unitarian Universalists, as a people of a liberal faith. Quoting Elaine Pagels in her book, Why Religion? Perhaps everyone should read that. Why Religion? Elaine Pagels writes, ever since the 2nd century, Christian leaders calling themselves Orthodox, meaning straight thinking, have defined choice as heresy. So to have a choice is to be a heretic. The Greek term translated for heresy, heresis, means exactly that. It means choice. So when we choose, my beloveds, we are returning to our heretical, those proud heretical roots, our roots that affirm our belief that revelation is not sealed. Revelation is not sealed. There's more truth and meaning and purpose, wisdom that is still emerging. The evolving nature of science and understanding of the world and ourselves continues to inform us. So to be a heretic is to choose our path, to continue on in our search for truth and meaning, which brings us to that second part. We choose to believe. Next, to believe. Just even saying those 2 words together reminds me of a famous radio program and series of books called This I Believe. There's usually a few folks who recognize This I Believe. Perhaps you can even hear at the beginning of the podcast, This I Believe. Began in 1951. It's a pretty radical idea back then. This, I believe, was a 5-minute radio program hosted by the then journalist Edgar R. Murrow, described as a show that encouraged both famous and everyday people to write short essays about what they believed, their own personal motivation for life, and then to read them on air. This, I believe, became a cultural phenomenon, stressed individual belief rather than religious dogma. Can you imagine that? That was a little before my time, but in 1951, I imagine that was a pretty radical idea for some. Murrow wrote that the reason he started this I Believe program was a project after his service in World War II, with the beginnings of the Cold War. He said the uncertainty of the economic future, the shadow of war, the atom bomb, the military service for oneself or one's loved ones, and the frustration of young people facing an uncertain future. That's why Murrow started it in the 50s. But all of those are themes that we could claim here today. These themes are enduring, and of course they are. We are all still wrestling with living life on life's terms, not our terms, but living life on life's terms. Which means, as the This I Believe program is described, people will live happier and richer lives if they deliberately decide what they want from life, what they want in material things, and the relative importance of moral and spiritual things. So for me, to believe is to set a beacon up on that hill and say, that is the light that I am guided by. That is the kindness I believe in, that I strive towards every day. That is the truth, the meaning, the purpose, the justice, the activism, the generosity, the loving God, the God of our understanding that we guide our lives by. It is to say, I believe in kindness. I believe in courageous love. I believe in justice making and peace. Or better yet, I choose to believe in kindness. I choose to believe in service and sacrifice and generosity. And these beliefs, when we choose to believe, we are wrestled, and we wrestle and we explore and we expand them, just like Jacob and the angel. When we wrestle, we are broken and we are blessed. But if we just stop there, if we just stop at we choose to believe in X, Y, or Z, then we miss that pulsing, meaty heart that holds it all together and gives faith its meaning. That which is greater than ourselves. As Unitarian Universalists, we say we live as a people of covenant. You recite your covenant each Sunday, reminding you who and how you are to be together. A covenant is to be bound together, bound to one another in the fabric of life. And we are bound. Remember the Latin words of the word religion is religio, which means to bind, to be bound together. And bound up into that interdependent web of all of existence. Here you are blessed to see creation right outside the windows, to feel the presence of creation. We are bound to our ancestors. We are bound to our ancestors who survived long enough to ensure future generations, to ensure our survival. We are bound to those who will go after us, inheriting this world that we've either made better through our love and service and generosity, or worse, through our actions and neglect. So we are bound to something greater than ourselves. For some, that is God. For some, it is the God of your understanding. For some, it is wisdom and science. For others, it is that common sense of good and purpose. It is our collective whole. It is liberation. Do you know what I mean? That sense of freedom that comes when you are loved and cherished for all of who you are here in this time and place. And since we are bound, we show up for one another. You are my kin. I will show up for you because we believe in that courageous, transformative love, a courageous love that welcomes the stranger, that feeds the poor, that heals the sick, comforts the dying. We show up for worship and service because we believe in our collective resolve to build and sustain a spiritual community that is a safe haven for those seeking rest. We show up because here is a place where you are a we. It's one of my favorite things to say to spiritual community. Spiritual communities are a place where you are a we. We believe in that greater purpose because it is linked to justice. And we believe that without our faithful witness, the agitation and protests of people of faith, the world will tilt towards our basest nature, selfishness, self-centeredness, and mindless hedonism, rampant individualism, cutthroat capitalism that uses people, especially BIPOC and marginalized and queer people, and the earth. It uses people and the earth like tissue paper. We show up. We show up for those without institutional power, for those on the margins who are vulnerable and disenfranchised, because we are a we. And because without the work of the people of faith and conscience, they and some of us here in this room today remain invisible and suffering. We show up because, my beloveds, as a people of faith and conscience, we have to. So faith is to choose to believe in something greater than ourselves. And then bonus. Bonus, we have meaning. We have purpose. We have a framework to build our lives around and a place to return to when our spirits wane and the world gets overwhelming. Has it gotten overwhelming for anyone recently? Come on now. Because we have an identity, like a garment wrapped around our shoulders, because we know we are part of the good in the world, the transformational, the hopeful, the heretical. Spirit of life, roots hold me close, wings set me free. So we have to go no farther than our universalist roots. The core teaching of our universalist kin, who taught since there is no heaven or hell, we create heaven or hell right here based on how we live, how we love, how we care for one another. So if you go to General Assembly, our annual gathering of Unitarian Universalists across the nation and world, if you go to the Universalist booth, you'll find t-shirts, one of which says, "Love the hell out of this world." Children and youth in my congregation love it when I say that, and I'll say it again. Love the hell out of this world. To be that beacon of love is to create heaven on earth. Through our courageous love, our unending compassion and grace. So yes, we may veer off course. We may lose our way and get lost in the crowd. We may find ourselves alone again and again, cast adrift, waiting on that curb to be found. And faith, to choose to believe in something greater than ourselves, reignites our passion for meaning and purpose, and we find our way home. We find our way home. We find our way home. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so. Will you join me now in our closing hymn, Dear Mother, Father of Us All, number 274 in the gray hymnal. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together.
Our words of benediction today come from Ethel Gudmundsen. And now, may we have faith in life to do wise planting, that the generations to come may reap even more abundantly than we. May we be bold in bringing to fruition the golden dreams of human kinship and justice. This we ask, that the fields of promise become the fields of reality. We extinguish this flame, but keep alive its love and light in our hearts until we are together again. Amen, Ashe. And may our lives preach louder than our lips.